Well, hello, and a very warm welcome to my channel today. My name is Louise. If you're wondering why I'm sitting at this wonky angle, it's all to do with the lighting through the window. I feel like I look like I might be about to loll off my chair, but it's kind of the most relaxed spot to sit in, bearing on. Otherwise, I'm going to have massive shadows and things like that, and you wouldn't be able to see my big grin. Um, so anyway, my book of the month this month, I was going to say this week, is the fantastic No Friend to This House. I'll just stick it in front of my face. No Friend to This House by the wonderful, the amazing Natalie Haynes. Now, I have this, by the way, is a proof copy and it's absolutely beautiful, but I have also had sight of the hardback version in the gift shops, in bookshops, and it's absolutely beautiful. If you want to gift somebody a gorgeous, beautiful book, particularly if they're interested in the ancient world, then this would be a perler to choose. I just want to kind of keep doing that with it, really. Sorry if that's a bit triggering for any of you. So I have had personally a very long-standing relationship with Medea. I know that sounds a little bit weird, but I first encountered her many years ago, probably when I was about 16, and I was learning, initially teaching myself because I was such a geek, ancient Greek, and I wanted to go to university and study it, and there wasn't the possibility of learning it at the school that I was at. So I taught myself, and then by the serendipitous workings of the world, signed up for a German night class with my mother, and we met someone who knew someone who was prepared to teach me ancient Greek. So it's got a happy ending, this story. So anyway, so I ended up studying extracts in Greek of Euripides, Medea, and I mean, she is one of the most fascinating characters from ancient literature, and I'm going to have to be really, really careful how I talk about this because I don't want to give too many spoilers away. And yet there are certain things that I feel I want to say about this novel. So I'm walking an absolute tightrope today. Good job I slept well. So here goes. So Medea is famous. Actually, I know what I'm going to say first. For those of you who are of a similar age to me, maybe slightly older, maybe slightly younger, you may well have grown up on the Harryhausen version, the film version of Jason and the Argonauts. So that is that, you know, if you are aware of that film, he was Harryhausen was famous for using is it called stop animation, something animation? Can't think of the phrase now. And Jason and the Argonauts used what at the time was the most amazing special effects. So he was able to bring sort of monsters and creatures, you know, fantastical mythological creatures to life in a way that had never been seen before on the screen. And I remember being absolutely, Jason and the Argonauts was my absolute favourite film when I was a youngster, and actually probably absolutely, if I had a desert island choice to make about films, it would be at the top of that list, I think. Possibly it would battle with The Princess Bride for supremacy, which weirdly is a book that I've never read. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. So if you've seen the film of Jason and the Argonauts, the story of Medea will be vaguely familiar to you. So Jason is a young prince with things to prove. He is Greek. He is given a quest to prove himself, to go to Colchis, which was on the Black Sea, and so that, you know, that would be to the ancient Greeks like going to the end of the world, and he has to go and obtain this golden fleece. And so he builds a ship called the Argo, hence the Argonauts. The nautes means sailor in Greek, so the Argonauts are the sailors on board, and he recruits the most amazing team to go with him. So Heracles and Orpheus and various other characters from mythology embark with him on this on this journey to go and fetch the Golden Fleece from Colchis. But of course, Colchis is ruled by a tyrannical foreigner, because the ancient Greeks, sadly very much like we still do today, had very questionable views about anybody who was non-Greek. So often it's the case, like it sadly still can be in the Western world today. Easterners bad and weird and strange, whereas Westerners, i.e. Greeks, perfectly normal, nothing to see here. So Jason embarks on this voyage, and Natalie Haynes embarks on this fabulous tale, and she tells this story with such rigor, and don't let that word put you off, and joy. And if you've listened to her wonderful Radio 4 shows and podcast, Natalie Haynes Stands Up for the Classics, I can hear that voice. I can hear her voice a lot in this book. It's wonderful. In the same way that when I read Stephen Fry's Mythos or his books about mythology, I can hear Stephen Fry's voice in my head as well. There's something about the speech rhythms. So she retells this story, but she does it in a way, it's a story that's been told over and over and over again. So the version that I first encountered was written by Euripides as a play in the 5th century BC, but it's also been written by lots of other classical authors, by Apollonius, by Ovid, by Seneca, by various other classical writers, and has been picked up over and over and over again since. But what she manages to do is to bring an intensity and a freshness to this story, which is absolutely wonderful. And it's because she seizes on the character of Medea. Now, Medea, we don't meet until we get to Colchis. Medea is the daughter of this nasty, spiteful, difficult king. And so she's having quite an interesting childhood, shall we say, growing up in a very oppressed situation. And all the family dynamics are shocking, and so she is the princess, if you like, who helps our hero out in terms of obtaining the Golden Fleece. Now, one of the reasons she's able to do that is because she has, since she was a child, she has studied witchcraft. She, like Circe, is one of the witches of the classical world as well, and so she has more than the ability to help Jason out, but of course she can't help him out in a straightforward way. It has terrible consequences for her family, and she then has to flee Colchis with Jason and return to Greece. So we've got multiple parts to this myth of Medea. Now, the Euripides version just focuses on what happens when after Jason and Medea arrive in Greece, and what transpires there. I'm trying to be really, really careful. It's deeply, deeply shocking. This is a story of vengeance. If you love a revenge plot, then there is lots and lots of revenge, all sorts of cycles of revenge going on in this story. Medea is also quite conveniently related to Helios, the god of the sun, and that comes into play as well in the story. So you've got, fantastic twists and turns of mythology here. And what Natalie Haynes has done is she takes the story right back to Jason's departure from Greece, the reasons for him leaving, his expedition to gain the fleece. So the story's told in several different sections. And throughout the story, overwhelmingly, we're seeing Jason's exploits through the eyes of female characters. And this is another thing that I absolutely love about Natalie Haynes's take and what she's sort of campaigning to do, which is to restore the voices of all these lost females from mythology, and reinstating them, and through their voices reassessing the heroism of these heroes and the men in that world. And so therefore these books have such a freshness, and I say books because she's written others. Some of you may well have read Stone Blind, which is where she reinstates Medusa's story in a similar kind of way. So I absolutely love her for that. And you get this kind of polyphonous surround sound as you're reading of all these different female voices who've sort of been silenced really by humanity for all these years. And particularly, I loved Medea's perspective, especially towards the end when she's looking at the Athenians through a foreigner's eyes and looking at how the hypocrisy in society when we treat foreigners one way and we treat, you know, citizens another. And you know, that is incredibly pertinent to what is happening today, certainly in the UK and I think across the globe. So you know, it's also reminding us that the study of mythology and these ancient myths still have so much relevance and so much vitality today. Now, aside to all of that, so there's an engaging plot. It's written with such charm, and you know, I just sat down and read it very, very quickly. It's a book to gobble up, but then maybe go back and reponder, especially if you're not familiar with myths. Now, for those of you who haven't, you know, which will I assume be the majority, who haven't got a classical background like me, this book works on both of those levels. So as a classicist, I can gain an awful lot from reading this book. It's a reinterpretation, and it's made me think. So it's not patronising at all, because you know, I'm still learning lots and lots and lots as I read, and it's making me rethink my perspective on the ancient world. And I think for those of you who, you know, are not particularly familiar with ancient mythology, classical mythology, this is just such a brilliant grounding, because she's researched this so thoroughly, and it's really inclusive in that she brings in, you know, this will give you a fantastic grounding. It feels like nothing has been left out of Medea's story at all. Every single corner, the lesser known angles and the lesser known corners of Medea's world and Jason's world have been poked and prodded out and pulled apart. And again, that's something I absolutely love about Natalie. She is a self-confessed geek. She loves, you know, she stands there and she's proud about her sort of academic slant on things. You know, she's actually translated the whole of Medea into English from ancient Greek before she started writing this. There's a very interesting note at the back of the book where she talks about that. You know, so she has gone to the nth degree to produce this text. So you're getting this fantastic blend of academic rigor, but also this unique ability that Natalie Haynes has to bring the ancient world, the classical world, into the hands of ordinary folk. And for that, I absolutely, you know, you can hear it in my voice. I adore what she's doing. Because, you know, one of the reasons that I went into classics and I wanted to be a classics teacher was because I was so frustrated that this was a world that certainly in the UK seemed to be accessible largely to the wealthy through the fact that classics, those subjects were taught in private schools and not in your ordinary, you know, state school in this country. So I've spent a large part of my life trying to redress that balance just a little bit by bringing it into comprehensive schools. So, you know, this book really stands testament in my mind to the importance of that. And I'm just so thankful that she does it so brilliantly. Yeah. And yet it's, you know, it's a thoroughly, this stands up as a novel absolutely in its own right without any of what I've just said. So yeah, I urge you, if you're interested, or even if you're not in the classical world, go and buy this novel when you can, or borrow it from your library, or, you know, nab it from a friend. I really don't think you'll be disappointed. It's just wonderful. I think it's her best yet. There we go. Take care, everybody. Over and out, because I'm just going to keep repeating myself now. Bye. Hello, it's me again. I just wanted to jump in because there's something I absolutely forgot to say. And one of the things that I found really, really poignant and powerful about this book was that Natalie was obviously really, really moved by Euripides, by this play, the Medea, in the same way that I was when she was younger. And one of the wonderful things that struck me as soon as I started reading it was that she's actually paid homage to Euripides all the way through the novel, because she's taken um, a speech that the nurse makes at the very beginning of the play, and she's used that speech, she's threaded it through the novel. And this is, again, is such a sort of classical thing to do, a mythological thing to do, because if you think about, you know, the importance of weaving and stitching in so many classical myths, and she's interwoven through the text by having as these subheadings to each chapter a section of the nurse's speech, and the nurse is empathetic towards Medea, um, and I just loved that she had, you know, there is Euripides. She's acknowledging him by taking his words and threading them through the story. Anyway, sorry, I just needed to put that in. Take care. I'm off again now. I don't think I'll be back. Bye. Well, not today anyway. Bye.